has always been my favorite time of year. I love the crispness in the air and the cool mornings. I love the colors in the trees, the golds and the yellows and those deep reds. And here in Alaska, fall is extremely beautiful. I'm thankful that I got to enjoy the fall this year and the colors changing, but it just doesn't last long enough. And so I took one last night to sit out by the bonfire. But I still have a lot of work ahead of me. I needed to get all this wood stacked before the snow fell. But by the end of that day, the snow was already falling. And needless to say, that wood didn't get stacked. And overnight I got over 2 feet of snow at the property. The next few days were followed by freezing rain, which left a sheet of ice on top of everything. As the snow stopped falling from the sky, it began to fall from the roof. Which is good, because it means that I don't have to worry about getting up on the roof to clean it this winter. However, it did pose for some dangerous situations. When the snow slid off the roof, it landed on top of the woodshed. That woodshed was not built to withstand all that weight being on top of it. And it barricaded in the woodshed itself. And so I pulled out the snow rake and I began to pull the snow off of the top of the woodshed, which proved to be a bit difficult, especially while holding the camera. Yes, the struggle is real. And like I said, all that ice is sliding down now off the roof, which is a good reminder not to walk under the eaves of the house. Had I been standing here, I would be dead. Last year, I was snowed in at the cabin from the middle of December till the middle of March. And I thought initially that this winter might be the same, considering that I don't have a plow on my vehicle and I don't really know anybody in the area. But I did acquire the numbers of 3 different individuals who offer a plow service. And luckily, one of them was able to come out a couple nights later and clear the driveway for me so that I can get off of the property should I need to go run an errand, or should there be an emergency that emergency services could theoretically get to the cabin as well. I count myself as being very fortunate right now to be able to have made these acquaintances, and that there are people in the community, willing to take on this type of work. Luckily, it didn't take him very long to clear the driveway. It was about an hour's worth of work and well worth the money. The cabin originally had fiberglass insulation up in the ceiling of the root cellar, and rodents had nested in there. So earlier this summer, I had all of that insulation removed and the cellar cleaned up. But I needed to insulate down there nonetheless. And so I took a card from Boss of the Swamp's playbook, and I'm installing Reflectix up in between the joists. Hopefully that's going to do a good job of radiating the cold back down and the heat back up to the main floor of the cabin. So far it seems to be working well, and it is quite the task to do because you're working overhead and because there are a number of wires running along those floor joists. I need to, make sure that I'm being mindful of those and tucking the Reflectix up between the wire and the floorboards. And this will also help prevent the rodents from having a place to nest. They have no interest in the plastic, luckily. On the main floor of the cabin, I have 7 windows that are roughly 4 by 6 feet in size. They are double pane, but they're 50 years old and they don't do a great job of insulating from the cold. Last year, I put in some Insulfoam 2-inch thick rigid foam boards, and I put the reflective skin side towards the inside of the cabin. Unfortunately, this allowed ice to build up between the insulation and the window itself. Over time, that ice melts, and if that was allowed to continue, that moisture would seep into the windowsill and into the walls and could create rot in the walls itself. So this year I'm taking some advice from several of my viewers from last year who suggested that I use bubble wrap on the windows. So I'm just going to go ahead and thoroughly clean these windows, and then I'm going to lightly mist the windows with some water, and then I'm literally just going to apply the bubble wrap to the window itself. It clings to it much like wallpaper would. Goes on really easily. It does provide a semi-transparent, semi-opaque view to the window. At least this thinner bubble wrap does. And if you're curious about these metal grates, they're just there to keep them up off the ground until I have a more permanent home for them. I use them at my home in Colorado to hide an ugly window, if you will. And then on the kitchen window, I used a bigger style of bubble wrap. It allows more light to come through and allows me to see out of that front window. It seems to be insulating well, and the nice thing is from the outside, you really can't see in. I do like that. What in the world? With the temperature starting to drop outside, I've started to see mice in the cabin. And so I'm going to refresh what I did last year to prevent the mice from becoming a problem, which is basically just doing a mixture of flour and baking soda. But this year I am going to add borax to it, and I'm going to lose power. And now a word from our sponsor, which obviously isn't the electric company. Shall we turn on the lights? Hey, Alaska, turn on the lights, please. So what I was saying before I was so rudely interrupted by a power outage is that as the temperatures have dropped outside, I've started to find mice in the cabin. The other night, Kenai and I were sitting on the cot, and I was looking towards the Arctic entry, and under the corner of the door popped out a little mouse. He took one look at Kenai and I, and he ran right back into the Arctic entry. Last year, any opening I could locate in the walls of the cabin, I went ahead and sealed those up with whatever I could find. Whether it was steel wool and spray foam, or it was Gorilla Tape, believe it or not. And I covered the Arctic entry door with hardware cloth last year, 1/4-inch hardware cloth that I just stapled up around the frame of the door. And because I wasn't using that room. But now that I am, when I had Aaron out here doing some work for me earlier this summer, I had him go ahead and apply some trim around that door to cover up the gaps at the top and the bottom of the door. But there's still a gap. So I ordered a brass kick plate, which I've gone ahead and installed. It fits perfectly and covers up that hole so that the mice can't come through there. But I need to make sure that the mice that are already in the cabin and in the Arctic entry are dealt with. Last year in the root cellar, I put out shallow dishes of equal parts of flour and baking soda. And that worked out fantastic. Every time I would go into the root cellar, I found a desiccated mouse. And this works because the baking soda causes a gas buildup inside of the mouse. The mice do not know how to flatulate or to release the gas. And so, therefore, it just builds up inside of them, puts pressure on their organs, and they wind up becoming deceased. It's also meant cleanup was really, really easy. I tried using a bucket trap last year. I only caught 2 mice in it, and I honestly did not like dealing with the bucket trap. I didn't like having to fill it with water and carry that water up the stairs and to go dump it out in the woods. Just, to me, that was too much effort. And the fact that it didn't catch very much also, and I kept it down there all winter, but I still only caught 2 mice in it. By using this, I caught more mice than I did with anything else. I also tried using some of these reusable mouse traps that you just bait, but what I found is that my bait disappeared and I didn't catch a single mouse using these. Now I know some people have had great success using things like peppermint oil, but I also found that peppermint oil did not work. I had an open bottle of peppermint oil sitting underneath one of the openings where the mice were trying to come through. And despite that bottle sitting there, they were still trying to claw their way into the cabin. And I know they could smell that peppermint oil because it was so strong. And I gave up on that really, really quickly. By using this combination, I had fantastic success. So this year I'm going to add in borax to it and just double ensure the success of this method. And again, it's just equal parts of these, and then I'll probably just put in about half as much of that in borax. The borax is poisonous to mice. It can hurt your dog or your cat. So if you do this, make sure that you keep this out of reach of them, because this can cause kidney damage in your 4-legged creature friends. But in a mouse, it's going to poison them. And then I will be using just some old-fashioned mouse traps that I will be putting a small portion of a deli-style meat stick that has been pushed over the bait station. And once these traps are set and a mouse comes along and tugs upon that, he will surely meet his demise. And as an update to this video, it's been a week since I've placed these around the cabin, and I have caught 5 mice and 1 shrew so far. If I just put, say, peanut butter or something like that on here, in my experience, what I've found is that they just lick that peanut butter ever so gently and they never set the traps off. But if you put something on there that causes them to have to tug at that foot, that will cause this little lever here to break free of its foothold and set the trap off. So that's the plan, is to use these deli style beef sticks to eradicate the mice. And then I'll place these behind things like the buffet or the freezers in places where Kenai cannot get to them, but the mice are sure to follow. You know, they're going to go anywhere where they're going to be less seen, and I'm sure they're staying nice and toasty warm underneath those freezers. By placing the dishes of the baking soda and flour mixture, as well as the baited traps around the cabin and in the root cellar, I should eliminate the mice fairly quickly. But I did go around and make sure that any other openings I could find, I went ahead and sealed them up. When I was up on the roof the other day, I noticed that when they replaced the roof, that there was a small gap that I could see the plastic that's covering the insulation in the ceiling, and I could see that from the outside. So I just went ahead and put some steel wool in there and then sprayed it with some spray foam, sealed that up, sealed up some gaps around the doors, and hopefully by doing these things, not only will the cabin stay warmer, but also the mice will not have entry into the cabin. One thing that you might not know about mice is that they are excellent climbers. If you have an opening high up on your wall, they can still get in there. They can climb up and jump down. They're not afraid of any of that. So make sure you're sealing up all those gaps that you might have where they can come into your property. One thing that I will not be doing to trap rodents is using sticky traps. Sticky traps are inhumane. Yes, I know that I showed a sticky trap in one of my very first videos for the squirrel. Luckily, that trap froze and the squirrel did not become stuck to it. However, it's a very slow, agonizing, and painful death for a rodent on the sticky trap. And if you're not willing to let it just meet its demise over time on those things, then you need to put it out of its misery. And that's not something that I'm comfortable doing. So no sticky traps for this girl. It's all just going to be something that causes a very quick and hopefully a less agonizing demise for the rodents. So I want to provide an update to the caribou hunt. Unfortunately, while we saw caribou, they were too far away for us to harvest any of them. And so we're looking to going again in the future, and hopefully we'll have better success. There were other people in the community who did manage to get a caribou. And on our way back from the hunt, we actually encountered a gentleman who did get a caribou, but had become injured in doing so, and he needed first aid. So luckily we were the ones that came upon him, and without even thinking about it, I jumped out of the truck and started to administer first aid right away while the fire chief called in the incident. While I'm always stressing that you should have a first aid kit with you, I also would like to stress that it's important to become familiar with your first aid kit and to become comfortable with administering first aid or trauma care, so that if you're in a situation like this, you can jump into action without even thinking about it, and it's second nature to you. When I went into town, I hit the post office and I received some thoughtful gifts from some of my viewers. I'll be going to the post office just one more time, and then not again until spring when the roads have cleared of snow and ice. So I want to say thank you to everyone who has sent thoughtful gifts, cards, letters. They all mean a lot to me, and I consider each and every one of you a friend. I appreciate all that you do for this channel. If you would like to continue to support the channel in other ways, there is always the membership page, as well as Patreon and PayPal. All three of those are set up to where you can choose how little or how much you would like to donate to the channel, and your donations go right back into the channel to help me purchase things such as SD cards for the cameras, taking online courses for video editing or filmography, or paying for my subscriptions for the music that I used for these videos. So thank you for your support. It's very much appreciated. If you've made it this far into the video and you haven't subscribed, please do. Obviously you like what you see and there's more to come. Also, if you could, give this video a thumbs up if you found it useful or entertaining, as well as share the video with your friends and family. If you feel so kind to leave a comment, I'll do my best to read it and to reply. I don't get a chance to reply to everybody. Sometimes they get held up and I have to go searching for them, but I do attempt to make an honest effort to give everybody a response. If you took the time to comment to me, I'd like to take the time to let you know that I appreciate that. So thanks for watching. I'll see you again next week. And if you're new to the channel and you haven't seen my other videos, be sure to check out these videos. This is the one that YouTube recommends, and these are the ones that I recommend.